Hey everyone, today we're going to have a look at how the SAMR model in the education system can work when using Minecraft Education Edition. So before we kind of go through the specifics of how they relate and how they correlate, I wanted to refer you to this OneNote, and you can download this OneNote. The link is in the description, so feel free to have a look around. It has the four main areas, which we'll talk about more in a second, that are related to the SAMR model, and provides some kind of like generic descriptions. They're not specifically topic based. You would have to kind of read them and determine whether your topic would then relate to it. So really great resource to download. But let's stop, and I'm going to bring up a PowerPoint to go through some examples with you. So these are our four main areas of the SAMR model: substitution or substitute, augment, modify, and redefine. You can kind of get a basic understanding there on those very brief descriptions about what each one means. And the SAMR model isn't necessarily linear. It doesn't move. You don't move from left to right. Depending on the task at that time, you know, substitute might be the most appropriate way to use technology. But the idea with the SAMR model is to move towards what we call transformation of learning. And the transformation of learning phase happens when we're in the modify and redefine stage. So it's where the technology plays such a significant part that it would be basically not possible. That type of learning would not be possible without it, and that's when that real impact happens. And Minecraft is a brilliant software to make that happen. We're going to look at 4 examples today, so one for each basically, and I'm going to just share with you some experiences that I've had in using Minecraft Education Edition and how students have responded in these 4 different areas. So let's have a look first at substitution. So here, this is just a really basic example. And so we have this activity where we wanted students to kind of use the inventory in their Minecraft world. And we wanted them to replicate a model, so a 2D model. So there was initially like an unplugged activity where the students would kind of color code as well. You could definitely do that with colored pencils or crayons, whatever it may be. And they planned out what they were going to build as a 2D idea or model, or could even be a poster in the world. And so for this one, they came in. This is really great for kind of creating those 2D pixel characters, but they came into the world, and if we looked at that straight on, we're just looking at a 2D object. I know we can move around it, and it is 3-dimensional, but it's certainly a substitutional way for building those types of ideas. There are a lot more ideas. This is just one I wanted to share with you. The second one is based around this augment or augmentation phase. And so in this one, we're looking at how students have used the inventory to create or replicate a 3D model or an idea. So in this particular context, what we're looking at is students had to design a natural disaster. And in that natural disaster, they had initially in class built dioramas. Some students really struggled with that because they had some really great ideas. This idea that we're seeing on the screen is kind of like an asteroid hitting the ground. And in this phase, they could really bring their creativity to life. And when the students stood up and presented their work, the way that they could articulate what they had learnt around the topic was far greater than when they were kind of having to do it tactile. So the software really kind of came into that augmentation phase and supported the learning. This example here is based around modification, or to modify. So these students had to incorporate levers, and they had to incorporate commands, which is a part of Minecraft, which is brilliant for students to learn, especially kind of in the mid to upper primary going into secondary. And here students had to pose questions, and depending on whether they got those questions wrong or right would then lead them into the next phase of their world. So for this one, they have some levers running, so they can't open or access this door until we've read this question about fossil fuels and then chosen the correct one. And that way the technology is kind of bringing the topic and the idea to life, and it's really modifying the way that we can interact with what we've learned. And the last one is redefinition. And for this one, we had students engaging in building replicas of the understanding of how energy is made and transferred and used. And so for this one, they specifically had to use they decided to use coal and built this model about how coal is represented through the stages of energy. But what we did was we used Minecraft, and we used something called the structure block, and I put a link to some resources about how to use the structure block, and the students were able to export that. And if I let's go back, and there we go, get it running again, and we've actually put in this structure block as a 3D model, and that's why it's spinning, and you can currently see it in a 3-dimensional format. And so the beauty of that is that we could really bring this to life. And for these particular students, they'd actually then broken it up into each phase and explained each phase as a separate 3-dimensional model. You can if you're in that space of engaging with 3D models, I'm sure you can think of some amazing extra ways around 3D printing and 3D paint and AR and VR opportunities that are available in this space. So guys, that is kind of our explanation, our one-by-one example there. Don't forget that if we jump out of this one, that we do have this OneNote that is available for you to download. There are more examples there to kind of get the creative juices flowing for you, and you might be able to find ways to implement the SAMR model in your educational teaching with Minecraft Education Edition. Thanks so much for your time, guys. We'll see you again soon. Cheers.